No one knew the girl in the frayed brown belt was Chuck Norris's daughter. All they saw was someone quiet, alone, and, if we're being honest, easy to dismiss. She stood at the edge of the mat, her stance calm, her eyes lowered, and her uniform stripped of all decoration. No trophies, no patches, no past. But that was before the final strike, the one that made the room fall so silent you could hear a heartbeat echo off the walls. Even the coach took a step back. Before we get into what happened, let us know where you're watching from today. And if this story grips you the way it gripped all of us, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. The air inside Red Mountain Dojo, yes, they called it a jam, not a dojo, out of some self-important fusion of Korean tradition and American ego, was thick, not with heat or sweat, but pressure clung to your skin, heavy and electric. Something was about to happen. You could feel it humming just beneath the polished floorboards. A line of students sat barefoot along the mirrored wall, legs crossed, hearts somewhere between curiosity and pity. What they were about to witness was supposed to be a routine sparring demonstration, but across the mat stood Diego Navarro, the head instructor, five-time national TKD champion, Olympic contender turned cult icon. His name was stitched on every uniform, his banners hung like war flags above the mat, his philosophy, to strike first, regret nothing, emblazoned on every student's tongue. His presence was like gravity, inescapable and unrelenting, and facing him was Maya, faded brown belt, neutral, stance, silent eyes. The only clue to her history was her perfect form, too perfect to belong to someone ordinary. Her gi bore no affiliation, only a small name tag stitched on the inside flap. Her mother's surname, Norris, wasn't mentioned. Not once. Navarro didn't bother with a respectful bow. He stared her down like a man welcoming an easy kill. "Let's not drag this out," he said, his voice carrying across the mat like a challenge, not an invitation. "Show me what 15 years of daydreaming gets you." A few snickers bounced from student to student. Jason, the dojo's loudest brown belt, leaned to his friend. "Why even bother? She's done before it starts." But Maya didn't flinch. She bowed, slow and precise, her fists resting gently at her sides. Then she raised them, not high and aggressive like a brawler. No, she floated into a modified Taekwondo Charyotesogi, a tension stance, and then eased into a fighting stance so balanced, so composed it made a few students blink. Navarro opened with a front snap kick, clean, fast, a textbook intimidation move. She wasn't there. Before his foot even touched down, she'd already pivoted, her lead foot gliding diagonally across the mat with the grace of a falling leaf. Her weight barely shifted. No panic, just pure read and react. Navarro adjusted. He grinned, but there was a flicker, just a flicker, of recalibration behind his eyes. "Come on," he taunted, circling. "Let's see something." Maya remained centered, calm. Her hands moved with the subtle rhythm of a seasoned TKD practitioner, never wasted motion, always ready to strike or fade. Then Navarro lunged, a low step-in followed by a backhand swing designed to throw her off balance, the kind of move that ended most brown belts. But she was gone again, not backwards, diagonally forward in the blind spot of his swing, the way only someone trained in Olympic-style evasion would dare move. And then, from that perfect angle, she turned her hips and threw just one punch. Not wild, not emotional, calculated, devastating. Her rear hand drove into Navarro's solar plexus with a sharp snap, 1 inch deeper, and it would have cracked bone. Not enough to injure, but enough to make his footing crumble. His knees buckled, his torso twisted awkwardly, and then, silence. Navarro dropped, flat on his back. Arms splayed, mouth slightly open. 14 seconds. That's how long it took to dismantle a legend. The whole room froze. You could hear the buzz of fluorescent lights above. Somewhere near the shoe racks, a water bottle rolled to a soft clunk. Nobody spoke. Navarro stared at the ceiling like it had betrayed him. His ego scrambled for meaning, for something to blame. Maya didn't even breathe hard. She stepped back, returned to her neutral stance, and bowed. Formal, controlled. Her face was unreadable. No one clapped. Not yet. A whisper broke the silence. "What the hell just happened?" She caught him clean, someone else muttered. That was perfect. And then at the very edge of the room, next to the shoe rack, behind a row of framed certificates and forgotten trophies, an older man leaned forward slightly, steel gray eyebrows, weathered skin, frayed arrows, weathered skin, calm eyes that had seen war and worse. He didn't clap. He didn't smile. But there was the faintest curl at the edge of his mouth. Chuck Norris. He had watched his daughter fight 1,000 times, in secret, in silence. And still, even he leaned forward, because what had just happened wasn't just sparring. It wasn't just control. It was something bigger. A message. The Dojang didn't just see it. They felt it. Navarro sat up dizzy, humiliated. His eyes scanned the room, searching for someone to reassure him this was a fluke. But all he saw were students looking at her. Not him, her. 14 seconds, and the gravity of the entire room shifted. Maya stood tall, still. Her posture was no longer that of a visiting brown belt. It was the posture of someone the room was suddenly afraid to underestimate, because now the question wasn't who trained her. It was, what else had she been hiding? 3 days earlier. 3 days earlier, Maya stood in front of the mirror, tying her brown belt slowly. The fabric looked older than her, faded, frayed, so thin from years of repetition. She stared at her reflection, then at the black belt folded in the drawer below. Her name stitched beside another, one the world knew. Behind her, a familiar voice broke the morning stillness. You sure about this? Chuck Norris stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes sharp as ever. His presence filled the room like a mountain, still and immovable. She turned slightly. They don't need to know who I am or who you are. Oh, they'll find out eventually, he said. Maybe. But I'm not going to walk in wearing a legend I didn't earn in that room. Chuck stepped forward, picked up the black belt from the corner of her dresser, turned it over gently, like it was a relic. Her name, his name, history sewn in white thread. He didn't hand it to her. He just stared at it. A while, then placed it back in the drawer slowly. Why not wear this? He asked, his voice low. Not a challenge, just a father trying to understand. Maya smiled, a flicker of defiance and humility in her eyes. Because they respect the belt more than the person wearing it. Chuck paused, then nodded once, just once. Because he knew the person she was becoming didn't need to wear his name to prove anything. I want to see what happens when they see me without it. Maya's voice was low, almost a whisper, but there was iron behind it. Chuck chuckled, not from humor, but something older, deeper, like a memory rising from his ribs. He exhaled a slow breath and looked at her with a gaze that carried decades of bruises, regrets, and victories. You're your mother's daughter. Maya met his eyes. No smile, just stillness. No, she said. I'm yours, she said. I'm yours. He paused in the doorway, one hand on the frame, his back casting a long shadow across the floor. Remember what I taught you. Karate isn't about punishing weakness, he said. It's about challenging strength, especially the kind that hides behind arrogance. Maya nodded. Flinging her bag over her shoulder, she kissed him on the cheek and walked out the door without another word. Red Mountain didn't look like a traditional martial arts school. No sacred hush, feces, no creaking wooden floors. It was glass, chrome, and branded confidence. The kind of place where appearances were everything. Banners, medals, photos of champions in power poses visible from the parking lot. Prestige on display. Inside, the receptionist barely looked up. The young guy in a branded tracksuit, chewing gum like he was clocking time at a front desk, not guarding the gates of a so-called elite institution. A new student? He asked, eyes flicking toward her belt. A transfer? I've been training 15 years, Maya replied, calm. A brown belt. He blinked. He blinked. No reaction, just slid a clipboard her way. Advanced classes, full contact. We don't slow down for newcomers. Maya signed the waiver with her mother's last name. Her handwriting was neat, controlled. I'm not asking you to, she said. In the locker room, she kept to herself. Hair tied back, belt tightened with methodical precision. Her breathing was slow, deliberate. Preparation wasn't about warming up. It was about becoming invisible, just another body in the room. Behind her, a voice. A first time here? Maya turned. A tall woman stood behind her. Lean, wiry, built like a coiled spring. Another brown belt. Apu said, keeping her tone even. The woman nodded once. Watch yourself. Coach Navarro doesn't go easy on women. Maya raised an eyebrow. Just women? A small, grim smile. Especially women. That evening's class was more military drill than martial arts. Navarro didn't teach, he commanded. His voice cracked across the room like a whip. A back straight, hips square, lower. That's not a stance, that's a suggestion. Assistants floated through the ranks, correcting posture with sharp snaps of hands or the occasional shove. Encouragement was a myth. Encouragement was a myth. If you were waiting for kindness, you were in the wrong room. Maya moved deliberately. Not sloppily, but not sharp enough to draw attention either. She was threading a needle, staying just inside the lines. Competent. Unremarkable. That was the goal. Navarro watched her once during warm-ups. Briefly, his eyes narrowed. Not suspicion, not yet, but curiosity. He moved on without a word. That night, Maya texted her father. First contact made. He's exactly who we thought. Chuck replied in minutes. Stay calm. Stay sharp. A place like that exposes itself fast. Maya put her phone down, opened a plain black notebook and wrote, Red Mountain, Day 1. Arrogance feels like sweat, sticky, uncomfortable. But eventually it shows everyone's true form. Beneath it, she drew a single straight line. A timeline. A countdown. Day 1 was marked. The rest waited. Next day, the locker room felt quieter, but in volume, but in atmosphere. That kind of quiet where people know something's off, but they don't have the words for it yet. Maya entered with her bag slung low, shoulders loose, eyes soft. She claimed a corner bench and untied her shoes slowly, absorbing the rhythm of the room. To her left, a pair of women whispered. Words were too low to catch, but the tone was sharp. Further down, a younger student kept glancing her way, only to snap her eyes away when caught. It didn't need to be said Maya didn't belong. Not to them. Not yet. Conditioning drills open class. Grueling. Endless. Navarro barked commands from the edge like a general watching new recruits suffer. A lower stance. Snapped the return. No, that's not a block. That's a suggestion. Fix it. Maya moved like a soldier trained to survive, not impress. Every block, every pivot was calculated to seem average. Not sluggish, just familiar. Forgettable. She knew this kind of environment. Move too well, too soon, and the whole room turns to watch. And if they watch, they strike. The tall woman from yesterday caught her eye during kick drills. A glance, not a smile, not quite approval, just recognition. Maya hadn't flinched, and that meant something. Then came the pivot. Navarro circled the mat like a shark smelling blood. He stopped in front of Maya. No name. No introduction, just pointed. A partner with him. The him was Marcus, broad shoulders, wide grin, brown belt with swagger. He extended a hand casually, like a challenge. But don't worry, he said, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. I'll go easy. Maya didn't answer. She just bowed and took her position. The drill, block, counter, retreat. Easy on paper. But Marcus pushed the line. Strikes came a little fast, a little close. Not enough to break rules, just enough to send a message. Maya didn't push back. She absorbed it, adapted. Flowed. Navarro hovered, arms folded. Too stiff, he called. You're hesitating again. Maya adjusted her stance. Marcus lunged again, this time quicker, sloppier. She blocked cleaner than intended. That didn't look like hesitation to me, he said loud. Let's see what you can really do. He stepped back. A freestyle, light contact, go. The class slowed to a halt. Heads turned. You could feel the air shift. Maya gave a small nod. Calm. Marcus grinned wider. His stance tightened. He stepped into range. The room held its breath. Marcus struck first. A probing jab, quick but readable. Maya shifted, deflected. He followed with a low kick telegraphed. Easy, she sidestepped, checked his leg with a light tap. No power, just control. The exchange lasted 10 seconds. She never broke rhythm. Navarro clapped once, a sharp sound. That's enough, he said, eyes locked on Maya. But this time, something in his face had changed, and everyone saw it. The second Maya peeled herself off the mat, something shifted, not just in her body, which ached from the impact, but in the way the room felt around her. Red Mountain had always buzzed with exertion, with the edge of competition, but now it pulsed with something else, anticipation, discomfort, maybe even doubt. And Navarro, he wore that smug detachment like armor. as if pain and humiliation were just part of the curriculum. "Not bad," he said at last, flat as concrete, "but I've seen smoother brown belts in high school clubs. You train where again?" Maya didn't blink. "Batsuya Dojo," she replied evenly, naming the fake school she and Chuck had agreed on weeks ago. "A small school. Private," Navarro snorted. "Figures." The drill resumed. No more commentary, no praise, no adjustment, just motion. One by one, she rotated through partners. Each new pairing meant a new test. More aggression, more weight behind the strikes, a little less restraint, and through every round she absorbed, deflected, endured. She gave just enough to hold her ground, not enough to draw fire. But still, the patterns her father warned her about were all around. It was in how Navarro only barked at the women, never the men. It was how his corrections to the men were strategic and technical, while his remarks to the women were short, cold, dismissive. No guidance, just judgment. And when it came time to spar, women were paired with the biggest, most brutal partners, as if survival was their lesson plan. But the reverse? Never happened. This wasn't a place where women were trained. It was a place where they were tolerated. That night, Maya lay flat on her bed, her limbs heavy and bruised, her mind razor-sharp. She reached for her notebook and turned to page 2. In clean, deliberate handwriting, she wrote, "They don't expect you to hold your own, so when you do, they hate you for it." Beneath it, she scrawled another line. Darker this time. "They teach fear here, not discipline." She underlined it twice. On the third day, the air inside Red Mountain felt different. It wasn't just sweat and humidity. It was pressure, thick and unseen, coiling in the silence. Something was coming. Maya felt it the moment she stepped onto the mat. She tied her belt in silence and stood tall as the others filtered in, some throwing her quick glances, others looking right past her. No one said a word. They didn't have to. She wasn't a stranger anymore. She was a presence. And tension always came before a test. Navarro showed up late, sipping casually from a protein bottle with his name stamped on it. Like the delay was a performance. He didn't say good morning. He never did. Instead, he stood at the front of the room and scanned the group like a general eyeing infantry. "The warm-ups are for white belts," he said at last. "We're going straight into contact work." Orders came quickly. The class snapped to attention. Diego moved down the line, pairing up students like chess pieces. When he got to Maya, he didn't even look at her. "You're with Jason," he said. Jason. Jason, a black belt. Young, fast, with his face on 2 of the glossy posters in the entry hall. He was one of Navarro's favorites. Athletic, sharp, polished. A real product of Red Mountain. Maya bowed as she approached. Jason returned it. But in his eyes, something new. Uncertainty. Like he wasn't sure what he was looking at anymore. They started with mid-range counter drills. Jab, kick, reset. Jason moved with clean aggression. Maya matched him beat for beat, always just a hair slower than she truly was. Just enough to avoid suspicion. The drill shifted. Takedown, defense. Oh, Jason didn't hold back. On the second attempt, he swept her legs hard. She hit the mat with a thud. No adjustment, no softness. Navarro didn't even flinch. "Stay down if you can't absorb it," he muttered, not to Jason, but loud enough to ring. Maya didn't blink. She stood, brushed off the dust from her gi and resumed her stance. Jason faltered, just a little. Then he eased off barely, but he noticed it. So did everyone else. Later, the entire class was called to line up along the far wall. Navarro paced the mat slowly, hands behind his back. "Sometimes we hide behind drills," he said, voice quiet but sharp. "But drills won't save you in a real fight. Pressure will, resistance will." He turned on a dime. "Round robin, light sparring, winner stays on." There was no discussion. No room for hesitation. Students began rotating in. Quick exchanges, aggressive taps, one surrender after another. Then, Collins, Navarro barked, locking eyes on Maya. "We're up, with me." A few students blinked. Dina stiffened where she stood, visibly tense. Maya walked to the center, calm, collected. She bowed. Navarro didn't return it. "We start standing," he said. She nodded. "I'm happy to train, sir." There was no signal, just movement. He lunged fast and sharp, with a front kick aimed straight at her ribs. Maya turned with it, redirected it smoothly. He followed up with a sweep, low and fast. She avoided it by inches. He was moving faster now. Oh, less calculated, more forceful. So, he wanted a crack in her control. He wasn't just testing her skill. He was trying to provoke something. She gave him nothing. Every block, every slip, every shift of her stance said one thing: I'm still here. The dojo was silent. Students watched from the sidelines, brows furrowed. This wasn't normal. A new student sparring with the head instructor wasn't unheard of, but not like this, not with this intensity, this early, this deliberate. Navarro struck again, a palm strike to the shoulder. Not sharp enough to injure, but enough to jar. So he was targeting her movements, probing her weak side. He swept in hard again, this time catching her off balance. She hit the mat flat on her back. The breath knocked from her. He saw her hesitation, the way her shoulder flared in pain. The same side she'd favored the day before. She lay there for a second, then two. Then she pushed herself up. Navarro took a step back. Too slow, he said. If that were a real fight, you'd be out cold. She didn't respond. He looked around the mat. If this dojo handed out belts for falling pretty, she'd be a grand master. Nervous laughter scattered through the students. A few looked away. Even Jason didn't smile. Maya bowed again, precisely, and returned to the line without a word. In the locker room, the silence was almost sacred. Dina passed by near the sink. She didn't look up, just whispered, "He was testing you." "I know," Maya replied softly. "He wanted to break you." Maya zipped her bag, then met her gaze in the mirror. "No," she said. "He wanted me to hit back." Then, why didn't you?" Maya's voice was steady, unshaken. "Because it's not time yet." Later, back in her room, she opened her notebook to a fresh page, and in steady, purposeful handwriting she wrote, "They don't just test your skill, they test your patience, your silence. They want to see how much you'll take before you stop being what they expect." Chat GPT-SK as it kept. The tension in the dojo was palpable as Maya stood at the edge of the mat, waiting. The rest of the students filed out, muttering among themselves, their glances lingering on her. Maya didn't acknowledge them, keeping her focus forward. Navarro's voice, cold and commanding, broke the silence as he motioned for her to come to the center. "Don't stand there like you're waiting for permission," he snapped, his eyes narrowing. "Get over here." She moved toward him, her movements deliberate, her posture unwavering. She had learned long ago how to control her breathing, her emotions, how to mask the fire that simmered just below the surface. Maya bowed, as was customary, but Navarro didn't return the gesture this time. He simply stared at her, his eyes calculating, trying to read her, to find a crack, something to exploit. "Sit," he ordered, his voice low. Maya lowered herself onto the mat, sitting cross-legged, facing him. There was no humility in her posture, no fear. She was just as still as she had been when she first walked into this dojo, but now there was something else in her eyes, a quiet, controlled strength that he hadn't expected. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound in the room was the distant hum of the fluorescent lights overhead. Maya could feel the weight of his gaze on her, but she didn't flinch. She'd been tested before by men who underestimated her, by women who resented her, by situations that seemed insurmountable. This was just another challenge to face, another piece of the puzzle. Finally, Navarro broke the silence. "You think you've won something here?" he asked, his voice edged with disbelief, the calm before the storm. Maya tilted her head slightly, considering the question. "No," she replied quietly. "I think I've shown you what you've been trying to ignore." He bristled at her calm response. "You think you've earned respect." His voice cracked slightly, a sharp contrast to his usual control. Maya didn't answer right away. She met his eyes, steady and unflinching. "Respect is earned, not given," she said softly. "But it's not about me," she said softly. "But it's not about me. It's about showing everyone else that they don't have to hide, that they can stand up, too." Navarro's jaw tightened. He didn't like the idea that Maya could be teaching lessons in his dojo, lessons that were supposed to come from him. The tension between them was thick, a battle of wills that neither was willing to back down from. He wanted to crush her, to remind her of her place. But in that moment, there was something deeper gnawing at him, an irritation, an unease that he couldn't shake. "But don't get too comfortable," he finally said, his voice flat, but there was a noticeable shift in his tone. "You've made your point, but don't think it's over." Maya stood without a word, her eyes never leaving his. She knew what this was. A challenge. A test. But she also knew that for the first time she wasn't the one being tested. She was the one doing the testing. As she turned to leave, the silence in the dojo was heavier than it had ever been. The other students who had remained watching from the sidelines had witnessed something they hadn't expected. A shift had occurred, one that none of them could fully grasp yet, but they all felt it. The dojo had changed, and Maya had, in some quiet way, taken control of it. That night, when Maya returned to her apartment, she sat down with her notebook again. She had learned more in these few days than in all the years of training before. As she flipped the pages, her fingers hovered over the words she had written earlier. This time she added something new. "They'll never expect you to stand up to them, so when you do, they'll come for you. But they'll only come for you if they see you as a threat." She underlined it twice, the dark lines sharp against the paper. And beneath it she wrote a final note. "Make sure they see you." It was more than just a lesson in self-defense. It was a lesson in survival. Dina gave Maya a knowing nod on her way out. Jason hesitated, glanced back twice, then the door shut behind them. Silence. Just Maya and Navarro, the hum of fluorescent lights above them like a distant storm. He leaned back against the mirrored wall, arms folded tight, his face unreadable. Seconds passed, long ones. Then came the question, low and level. "Who are you really?" Maya met his eyes. "You already know. You're not Collins, and you're definitely not a brown belt." "No," she said simply. Navarro let out a slow breath through his nose, more admission than frustration. "I've seen black belts move like that, but I've never seen one wait that long to hit back." Maya dropped her gaze, and so just for a breath, then lifted it again. "Steady. I didn't come here to win. I came to see what?" he asked, the edge in his voice starting to dull. "What this place has become." He didn't answer, didn't move, just watched her. She stepped forward, voice quiet but cutting. "This dojo produces champions. At what cost? How many leave bruised and silent, told to toughen up? How many women never return after being thrown against someone twice their size? How many shy kids walk out thinking their silence makes them weak?" The words landed like punches he hadn't braced for. Navarro's posture shifted. His arms dropped, the fire in his stance flickered. "I didn't come to shame you," she said. "I came because my father asked me to see how far this place had drifted from what karate was meant to be." Something flickered in his eyes. "Your father?" he asked. Maya's voice dropped. He asked. Maya's voice dropped. Chuck Norris. Everything stopped. The air. The room. Him. Navarro stepped back half a beat, just half, but it was all it took. Like realizing he'd been shadowboxing a ghost, only to find out it was a legend. He said slowly. "I thought I recognized that sidekick. I saw a clip of him once. 17 years old, bricks flying everywhere." Maya nodded. "He taught me how to fight, yes. But more importantly, when not to, and why." Navarro said nothing. He just stood there, the weight of it all settling over his shoulders. This time there was no fury in him, just silence. "You turned this place into a forge," Maya said. "But you forgot, real strength doesn't come from breaking people down. It comes from knowing when not." He lowered himself onto the edge of the mat, a man stripped of armor, the weight of his own choices pressing against his spine. "I built this dojo after I lost my coach," he said finally. "I wanted to make fighters, people who couldn't be broken." "And so you broke them first," Maya said gently, sitting across from him to see who was left standing. Navarro didn't defend it, didn't push back, just looked tired. Maya leaned in. "It doesn't have to stay broken." The next day, Maya didn't show up. Neither did Navarro. But the dojo didn't stall. Dina led the warm-up. Jason stopped treating beginners like ghosts and held pads for a kid half his age. Something had shifted, not with noise, but with intention. Later that night, a message popped up on Maya's phone. One line from Navarro. "Would you stay if we changed?" She didn't answer right away. She called her father. "He knows," she said. Chuck didn't ask how, didn't need to. Good, he said. Then maybe now the real teaching can begin. 6 months later, the dojo still bore its bones. Same wall, same floors, but the soul had changed. The championship banners were still there, but they were now joined by something new. Photos of bowed heads, of students helping each other up, of small triumphs that didn't earn medals, but meant everything. The name over the entrance. The name over the entrance had changed too. Where it once said Red Mountain Dojo, it now read Norris Martial Academy. Inside, Maya stood quietly, tying her belt. Black, no longer hidden. Her name was stitched in white thread. Just below it, another name, smaller, subtle, but unmistakable. Chuck. Morning, Professor. Someone called out. Maya looked up to see a teenage girl already stretching on the mat, her gi oversized, her hair in a battle with gravity. Maya smiled. A morning, Lily. Let's get warmed up. The mat began to fill, not just in numbers, but in spirit. A father and son trained side by side. Two sisters who'd joined during a self-defense seminar now moved like they'd always belonged. Even Dina had stepped up as a formal assistant instructor, clipboard in hand, tracking attendance like a sergeant with purpose. Navarro emerged from the office, not pacing anymore, not avoiding eye contact. His uniform was stripped of rank patches, clean, honest. The seminar instructors just pulled in, he said. Maya nodded. 10-minute warm-up. Then bring everyone in. He gave a short nod and moved. At the far corner, under a soft pool of light, hung a framed photo. Chuck Norris in his prime, one arm around a much younger Maya, both grinning, soaked in sweat, standing in the garage dojo, where it all began. Sarah adjusted the camera setup in the back. We're rolling, she said quietly. You're live in 5. Maya nodded, then stepped forward. The room calmed. It wasn't silent from fear. It was focused, grounded, present. She bowed. Everyone bowed back. We teach karate here, she said, voice steady, echoing through the mat. Not to hurt, not to dominate. We teach to restore. No one moved. A punch is only strong if it comes from a place of control. A block only matters if it protects more than just yourself. And real strength doesn't come from knocking someone down. It comes from helping them stand back up. She looked at them, each face, each student. Some of you came after the change. Some of you were here before. Either way, you've all earned your place. Now it's your turn to pass it on. At the back, a girl offered a fist bump after a respectful bow. Small, but it meant something. After class, a woman in a blue belt lingered near the door. She approached Maya slowly. Is it true, what this place used to be? Maya didn't dodge it. Yes, she said. The woman nodded. And you stayed anyway? No, Maya replied gently. I stayed because it changed. Outside, the sun hung low. The visiting instructors were unpacking gear. Diego spoke with one of them, no longer the man who paced and barked. Sarah handed Maya a tablet. The seminar's first 10 minutes were already uploading. A thumbnail glinted with the new dojo sign, sunlight bouncing off fresh paint. Maya looked toward the sidewalk. There, watching from a distance, stood a familiar figure. Cowboy hat low, arms crossed. Chuck Norris. He didn't wave. He didn't need to. He nodded. Once, slow, steady. Maya didn't smile. She turned back to the mat. A line up, she called. The students moved fast, focused, energized. She bowed once more. As the seminar began, Chuck turned and walked away. His job was done. Hers had just begun.